Today we're going to be putting solder on this woodpecker here, the red-headed woodpecker. We'll be soldering the edges, attaching a hook, and an eye. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to start by using flux, which again is an adhesive for the solder. It allows the lead to bond to the foil. Without it, it wouldn't accept it. It'd just stay on my iron here without the flux. So very important. We've got these foam prisms here to help me keep the piece in place. It won't move thanks to those. Kind of makes my job a little bit easier. So we're going to start by taking the wire and lining it up with the edge here. So I'm going to line it up at the top of the head where I want it to start up here, and then pinch it to get that corner where the beak starts. And then I can just bend this by hand into a curve. You can see that. Okay, good. I like that angle. Okay, a little bit more. You really gotta, it's quite tedious, but eventually you get it. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to take my solder and I'm going to anchor this piece of wire down so that it stays in place. Just like that. Okay, now that it's in place, you know, I can move this wire and the end isn't going to move anymore, which is very helpful. Okay, so now, well, with that end secure, I'm going to pinch here and just bend the wire down around the beak so that I do this in one piece. I could break it off here and then just rinse and repeat and do the same thing down here on the other side, but it's more secure if you just leave it in one piece. So I'm going to bring wire over, and actually that keeps moving, so I'm going to anchor it again. Stay. Okay. Get some solder on here. Pull this tight. There, anchored right on the tip. Nice. Okay, so then I'm going to take this around, down the beak. You know, these blocks are actually in my way now. Flatten this against the edge. And pinch it together. Yeah, that works the best right there. I'm pinching the wire against the beak. Okay, now I need to use my finger to bend the wire along with the neck around. Okay, and that's as long as I needed to go because that's past another joint. So where are my cutters? Here they are. I'm going to cut this here and get rid of this spool. And actually this is very helpful because this spool, the heat can conduct up the line and end up burning me. So I'm kind of happy to get rid of this. It is sometimes helpful though to have an end that you can grab a little easier than the end of this wire. So it's a balance of what you need to do. So I'm going to line this up here. See, this is why I hate wire work. It's very tedious. My least favorite part of doing stained glass, but it is absolutely necessary to reinforce the pieces. Okay, now that is perfectly aligned. I'll give you guys a close view. Right here, this is the wire coming down along the beak, and then it ends right here. Perfectly aligned. You can barely see it on top. So that's going to be a lot more secure than without it. That beak is very, very unlikely to bend. So get some flux, because I don't think I fluxed this side even. And let's just anchor that in place for now. Right there. Okay? It's a little bit off at the top. So I'm going to put another couple anchors in, and I'm going to move on. I'm not going to cover the wire yet. That's for when I do the edges. Now, again, I know I've already ranted about this before, but make sure that if you ever purchase stained glass, that the edges are rounded. Some people will just put a flat layer of solder across the edge, just like I have here right now, and then they'll leave it as that. It saves a lot of time in solder, but it's extremely cheap and less secure. What I like to do is I like to round the edges with solder so that they match the middle pieces. It looks a lot better, and you can tell with pieces that don't have a rounded edge, they definitely don't have wire reinforcement, because you'd be able to see that underneath the solder. So because I'm going to round it, you won't be able to see the wire reinforcement, and it'll look better, and it'll be more secure. So just a note for those of you that observe stained glass: if it has flat edges, that's pretty poor craftsmanship. So now that I have all the wire reinforcement done on this piece that I need, I'm going to do the hook. Okay, so I take the wire. It's always good to run a cloth along the wire. This does three things. One, it straightens it, gets out any bends that you make previously. Two, it cleans it. And three, it strengthens it, because you're stretching it. You gotta put quite a bit of force into it to stretch it, but you can actually strengthen it by that, which is very helpful. Okay, now I'm going to take the end of a pencil and round the end of the wire around the tip, like so, until it goes all the way around. I can complete a circle here. It's actually going past where I want it to go. So that's good. So I'm going to nip this. So there's two different ways you could attach this hook. One, you could put it on the side, like so, along with the edge, like I just did the wire reinforcement. But that puts a lot of pull on the one hook. You usually want to only do that if you have two hooks, because then that distributes the pull a lot. Instead, I'm going to make these two legs of the hook meet in the middle by pointing them 90 degrees down. Like so. Just gotta work them together gradually. There we are. There's my hook. Now, this is the front. This is the back. So I'm going to put it on in the back. Flux first. Always flux first. And I'm going to put this hook in line with the solder instead of on the edge, which will be a lot more secure. Okay, clean my soldering iron. Get any imperfections, dust off. Very helpful to have clean solder. Okay, I'm going to melt the lead, the solder here, so it's nice and hot. And then I need to match this wire with the solder line. So I'm going to bend it upward a little bit, because this line here is bent upward until it matches. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to press. Well, I first have to melt the solder again. Then I just press this down, and the heat transfers through the wire into the solder. Okay, it rotated on me. I don't want that. I need to rotate it again. Okay, it's very tedious. Come on, come on. I gotta be careful, because there's a small piece right here. Smaller pieces can't hold as much heat, and the glass could crack. I'll further explain that later if you're new to this. Okay, it's anchored. Now I can grab it with my wire. The better you make the hook, the easier this is. I could have done a better job at merging the legs, which is why I'm having a bit of trouble now. Okay, tell you what, it's anchored fine. So instead of trying to turn it, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend the metal hook flat instead of trying to turn the legs. There. Now it's facing the right direction. Okay. So So that's good. So the hook is attached. That'll just go on a suction cup with a hook, and it'll be good. Now it is time to do the edges. Fun time. Now, I could lay it horizontal here and use the blocks, but that's actually pretty inefficient because while the solder's melted, it's going to run down the side because of gravity. So I'm going to put my hand in a towel to protect it from heat. I'm going to just hold it like this so that I can adjust it back and forth. So let's flux the edge. I'm going to do the entire edge here, just so I don't have to apply flux again for a little while. Okay, good. Yeah, so you can do this two different ways. One, you can apply the solder to the edge and all of the solder to the edge that you're doing per section, and then smoothen the lines, or you can smoothen as you go. I prefer to do the former because sometimes if you apply it and smooth it at the same time, you'll have to re-smooth as you apply. So that's just sounds like more work. So I like to just place it all on and then smoothen it all. Section by section, that is, not the whole piece. Because I don't want to have to change my hand position right now. I'm going to flip them around. And now I'm just going to lay solder on the side, keeping him completely straight. I can't really say horizontal because he's already horizontal. I'm keeping him edge up. That's what I want to say. So that the solder doesn't drop off the side onto the board below. I could still pick up the solder, but that's wasted time. So right now I'm just placing solder on the edge, bit by bit. Now, I'm going to adjust my desktop here because I actually can't see the questions box. There we go. Now I can see the chat box. Okay, and back to it. The tape's annoying me. The wire keeps brushing against it. I was using this tape for the beaks to hold them in place until I did the initial soldering, because it takes too many tacks to hold the beaks down. They're too small. So just use tape. Okay. Back to it. I think that's enough for now. So I'm going to go ahead and start smoothing out this bumpy line of solder by just placing the iron down and melting it. And if I have the angle right, then it will just go flat and merge with the solder next to it. Okay, now I have to wait because it needs time to cool and harden. Okay, wait. Okay. You can actually tell too, it's more shiny when it's melted, and then like you see a faded film inch along the glass rather quickly as it hardens. Okay, nice and smooth. Wait for it to cool. Good. It's a little dirty. I'm actually noticing it now. Let me clean my iron. Yeah, see, that's much more shiny. It's easy to tell after you've cleaned it, but it's very slowly accumulates imperfections, dusts, stuff like that. Okay, now this part's tricky because I've got a curve. And with this curve, the solder constantly wants to go down, but down is two different directions. It's like kind of like a valley with the two mountains on each side. Constantly wants to go in the middle. Speaking of the neck, in reference to that. Wait for it to cool. Error code. That's not good. Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that. Whatever that glitch was, I'm not sure. Okay. That's good. I'm going to put a bit more flux on here. Ooh, that's quite warm. Do not recommend touching the glass for very long while you're doing this, because it gets a bit hot because heat transfers. Okay, that's most of the back there. So let's finish off the beak and cover up that wire. Okay, so since I don't have anything new to talk about at this moment, I'll go ahead and mention the issue with the glass being hot. Solder or lead can transfer heat because it's a conductor, it's a metal, but glass can't. When it absorbs heat, it doesn't know what to do with it. It just kind of sits in place. So it has a point to which it can't receive any more heat, and at that point it will crack. That's never happened to me before because I give the glass that I work with plenty of time to cool when it's hot. But the smaller the piece, the higher the chance of it breaking. Been doing stained glass for 8 years and that's never happened, so what I do works, but I have seen it happen. It just cracks randomly because it's got way too much heat. The solder can distribute heat because it's the metal, but glass, it doesn't really know what to do with it. Okay, gonna adjust my handhold here, do the rest. There we are. Okay, so I'm just gonna place the solder on, bit by bit. It's running a bit downhill because I'm holding it at an angle. That's fine, it doesn't really matter right now. I'm not trying to be clean. I do want to adjust it now because that's a pretty heavy angle. There we go. Okay, now it's time to smoothen them out. Just placing the iron on until it's smooth and then picking it up. Very gradual. There's a lot of weighting with this form of soldering. When the piece is flat, I don't have to weight nearly as much. But here, before I make an adjustment, I have to wait for it to harden so that it doesn't run and undo what I just did. Undo what I do. This is relatively flat here, so I'm just going to try and keep going. Good. Didn't mess it up at all. Okay, nice. Wait for that to harden. Good. Gonna round this tip. So it's not sharp. Metal can be very sharp. Okay, so I like, ooh, that's warm. I like all my edges here. So now there's still 2 more steps. 1, we gotta clean up the edges where the solder lines meet to the edge. And then 2, we gotta add an eye. So because I cleaned off this piece yesterday after soldering the front and back, I'm going to reflux all the points where the solder lines meet the edge. Cleaned all the flux off yesterday so that it didn't deteriorate the foil. It takes a lot more time than a day for that to happen, but it's a good practice to keep flux off of your piece unless you're soldering. So right now I'm just cleaning up the edges, where the edges meet the brake line, because doing the edges messes up the brake lines. There's a bit too much solder, but that's okay. There are two. I need to stop globbing it on. I'm going to drag this inward, kind of like petting it. Oh, just ran over the side onto the board. That's not good. So now I'm going to have to hold it upside down. Just kind of melt it off. Boom, right onto the board. I'll have to redo that edge because of that. Bad solder ran right off the edge. Why'd you do that? It's because my iron told you to do it. Dang it, it just dropped off the side. This is a rather problematic edge. Okay, that's good. Gonna leave that alone now. Okay. Definitely need a good cleaning there. It's too much solder. I need to pick it off. Okay, looking good there. Yep, okay, I got all the edges. Now the other side. Grab some solder I knocked off the iron before. Never want to waste solder. Sometimes it drops off, bounces off in little beads as you pull the iron up. You always want to pick those back up so you don't waste it. Okay, good stuff. Oh, wow, forgot to flux these. That's why I'm having so much trouble. That makes a lot more sense. Oh, so much better. Flux, guys, it's the key. Never have too much. You don't want to waste it, but I didn't have any, so that's why I was having so much trouble getting the solder to behave. Now it's being a bit more cooperative because it has flux. It's like the ultimate matchmaker. Fluxes. Makes the foil and the solder get along. That's good. I like it. Okay, now I need to check the edges again because, well, what I just did was I fixed the break lines where it meets the edge. Now I need to fix the edge again. So it's like a second round of cleanup. Good, good. I like it. Don't like that. That's better. It's pretty dirty. And this is getting really hot below my hand. Yeah. Ouch. Be careful not to get any solder on the hook because it won't come off. It's wire. Good, I like it, I like it. Okay, this guy is just about done. Let's put some eyes on now. A little bit of solder here. Sorry, flux. And then I'm going to apply a dot of solder, but I am not going to merge it into the line. So it takes a very light touch. Beautiful. I'm really happy with that eye, actually. It's just a beautiful oval shape. So now let's do the other side. It's a little bit too flat. I'm going to wait for it to harden before I apply more. There we go. Better. Okay, this hummingbird is done. It's got a hook engaged. So I forgot to show you guys this. To test your hooks, you want to take some needle nose pliers or something else really narrow. Place it in the hook and just let it hang. And that is how it'll hang on a suction cup hook. Voila! Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here and clean this woodpecker off. And then I will return to you for the next one as soon as I get all the flux off of this one. So thank you for watching.